A sculptor is shaping a block of marble with controlled force and precision, slowly bringing to life a magnificent statue of a thinker lost in deep contemplation. As he works, the sculptor is utterly absorbed, losing himself in the creative process. But after many hours of work, when he steps back to admire his creation, he sees that the face of the statue bears an uncanny resemblance to himself. In fact, the entire figure seems to be a self-portrait of the artist. It may seem strange that a sculptor would spend so much time and energy creating a work that is merely a reflection of himself. However, it was precisely this kind of self-absorption that characterized the life and work of one of ancient Greece, Socrates, whose birth is celebrated in May, and by exploring what exactly made Socrates such a great philosopher, we can better understand how his legacy continues to live on today. The ancient Athenians knew Socrates as a rather peculiar fellow. He dressed like everyone else, but he spent his days asking people questions about their beliefs and trying to persuade them that they didn't know as much as they thought they did. They considered him a busybody who interfered in matters he knew nothing about. And when he was put on trial for impiety and corrupting the youth, the Athenians found him guilty and sentenced him to death. So what made Socrates such a controversial figure? Like the sculptor, Socrates was deeply concerned with understanding himself. He famously said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." And so he devoted his life to philosophy. But unlike the sculptor, Socrates never wrote anything down. Our only source for his life and thought comes from his students who recorded their master's teachings in written dialogues. Through these dialogues, we learn that Socrates was a man possessed by an insatiable curiosity. Wherever he went, he questioned everything and everyone until he was satisfied with the answers he received. For example, in Plato's dialogue, The Republic, we find Socrates questioning a poet about the nature of his poetry, or a politician about his views on justice. And each time Socrates asks his questions, he manages to expose the inconsistencies and contradictions in the person's beliefs. This relentless pursuit of knowledge and truth is what made Socrates such a great philosopher. He wasn't content with accepting things at face value or simply repeating what others had said. He always tried to get to the bottom of things, no matter how difficult or controversial it might be. For instance, when someone told him that the best way to live was to pursue pleasure and avoid pain, he didn't just accept this statement as self. Instead, he asked questions like, what is pleasure? How do we define it? Is there really such a thing as pleasure that is always good? By relentlessly questioning our assumptions and beliefs, Socrates was able to show us that we don't know as much as we think we do. But why is this important? Why should we care about Socrates' legacy today? We live in a world where there is an overwhelming amount of information available to us at all times. It's easy to feel like we know a lot about everything, but Socrates teaches us that this is often not the case. He shows us that we need to be constantly questioning our beliefs and assumptions if we want to be truly wise. If we stop questioning, if we become complacent and stop seeking out new information and new experiences, then we will never reach our full potential. Socrates also teaches us that wisdom begins with knowing that we don't know something. It's easy to be arrogant and think that we know it all, but true wisdom comes from humility. Socrates was never arrogant, even though he was arguably the wisest man in Athens. He always remained open to new ideas and was willing to admit when he was wrong. This is an important lesson for us today. We should be humble and open-minded, even in the face of conflicting opinions. Only then can we learn and grow as individuals. However, despite Socrates' commitment to seeking the truth, he never gave up on his humanity. He understood the importance of living a virtuous life and being a good citizen. In Plato's dialogue Crito, Socrates refuses to escape from prison because it would be wrong to break the law, even if it would save his own life. This is a powerful lesson for us all. We should never compromise our ethics and morals, no matter how difficult the situation may be. So how does this legacy of Socrates manifest itself in the modern world? In the realm of ethics and morality, Socrates' ideas have had a profound impact. His method of questioning has been used by ethicists throughout the ages to explore complex moral issues. For example, the famous quote, "What is justice?" which opens Plato's Republic, is still debated by ethicists today. Socrates believed that justice is more than just following laws and avoiding punishment. It involves treating others fairly and living a virtuous life. His ideas helped pave the way for modern ethical theories such as utilitarianism and Kantian ethics. Utilitarians, like Socrates, believe that the right course of action is the one that benefits the greatest number of people, while Kantian ethics emphasizes the importance of universal moral principles. Both of these theories can be traced back to Socrates' own exploration of justice and virtue. In addition, Socrates' emphasis on the importance of self-knowledge and self-examination has inspired countless individuals to reflect on their own beliefs and actions. His legacy can be seen in the work of existentialist philosophers such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, who emphasized the importance of individual freedom and responsibility. Furthermore, Socrates' contributions to political philosophy are equally significant. His ideas about citizenship and the role of the government in society continue to shape our understanding of democracy and justice today. In Plato's Republic, Socrates outlines his vision of an ideal state ruled by philosopher kings, who are dedicated to the pursuit of wisdom and justice. While this utopian vision may never be fully realized, it has inspired reformers and revolutionaries throughout history to strive for a more just and equitable society. Despite his revolutionary ideas, Socrates was ultimately executed for his beliefs. However, his legacy lived on through his students, most notably Plato, who recorded and expanded upon Socrates' teachings. Plato's academy became a center of intellectual and philosophical inquiry, attracting students from all over the ancient world. It is considered to be the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. However, Socrates' legacy extends far beyond ancient Greece. His ideas have been studied and debated by philosophers and theologians throughout history. In the Middle Ages, St. Thomas Aquinas synthesized Aristotelian philosophy with Christian theology, building on Socrates' emphasis on reason and ethics. During the Renaissance, Socrates rediscovered works, inspired a renewed interest in classical philosophy, and helped pave the way for the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment thinkers such as John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau built on Socrates' ideas about natural rights and the social contract, arguing that government power should be limited to protect the freedom of the individual. Moreover, Socrates' influence can be seen in the development of modern psychology. His ideas about the importance of self-knowledge and introspection have inspired psychologists to study the human mind and behavior. In particular, Socrates' concept of the Socratic self has been influential in the field of identity psychology, which explores how people develop a sense of self through their interactions with others. Furthermore, the Socratic method of questioning has been used by therapists and counselors to help their patients explore their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. However, perhaps the most important aspect of Socrates' legacy is the example he set by living a life of virtue and seeking the truth. Despite facing ridicule, persecution, and ultimately death, he never wavered in his commitment to wisdom and justice. Socrates teaches us that it is possible to live a meaningful life even in the face of adversity. His example has inspired generations of philosophers, activists, and ordinary people to strive for a better world. Socrates once said that he was the luckiest of men, because he lived in a time when it was possible to be a philosopher. In many ways, Socrates was indeed lucky. He lived during a period of cultural and intellectual flourishing in ancient Athens, and he was able to travel widely and meet some of the most interesting and influential people of his day. However, it is also possible to argue that Socrates was unlucky. He lived in a time when people were often ignorant and close-minded, and he was constantly ridiculed and harassed by those who didn't like his questions and challenges. Ultimately, he was put on trial and sentenced to death for his beliefs. Yet despite any bad luck that may have come his way, Socrates was truly blessed with something far more valuable than wealth, fame, or power. He was blessed with wisdom. Socrates realized that true wisdom lies not in accumulating possessions or status, but in understanding ourselves and the world around us. He understood that the pursuit of wisdom is a lifelong journey, and he devoted his entire life to this pursuit. And so, as we reflect on the life and legacy of Socrates, let us remember that true wisdom is the most valuable thing we can ever attain. Let us also remember that the pursuit of wisdom is a journey, not a destination, and that we must always be open to learning new things and questioning our assumptions. Finally, let us be inspired by Socrates' courage and determination in the face of adversity. He was a true seeker of the truth, and his example continues to inspire us today.